Success tastes like expensive champagne and smells like designer perfume, at least until someone decides to pour their glass of spite all over your Valentino dress. I'm standing here, in the middle of the Ritz-Carlton ballroom, watching $300,000 worth of marketing campaign results dissolve into nothing but whispers and sideways glances. I'm Everly, and 5 minutes ago, I was on top of the world. Really, darling, we all know how these things work, Margaret's voice carries across the room like a perfectly aimed arrow. Young women getting ahead so quickly. Well, let's just say some of us remember what it was like in our day. The champagne flute trembles in my hand. My mother-in-law's words hang in the air, dripping with implications that have nothing to do with merit and everything to do with destroying what should have been my moment. "Mother," Mark says, but his voice lacks conviction. He's standing there, my husband of 7 years, wearing his custom-tailored suit and that weak smile that's become his signature move whenever his mother decides to take aim at me. "Oh, come now," Margaret continues, her silver hair catching the light from the crystal chandeliers. "I'm simply saying what everyone's thinking. Senior marketing director at 34? That's quite remarkable." Sophie catches my eye from across the room, her face a mix of horror and sympathy. She starts making her way toward me, but Daniel, that snake, intercepts her with some obviously urgent conversation. "I earned this position," I say, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. 3 consecutive record-breaking campaigns, the Miller account, the... "Of course you did, dear." Margaret's laugh is like breaking glass. "And I'm sure having such a close relationship with Victor had nothing to do with it." The room goes quiet. Even the string quartet seems to miss a note. "What exactly are you implying?" I step forward, but Mark's hand catches my elbow. "Everly, not here," he whispers, but I shake him off. Margaret takes a deliberate sip of her champagne, her eyes never leaving mine. "I'm not implying anything. I'm simply concerned about my son's wife's reputation. The hours you keep, the private meetings, the sudden rise to power. That's enough." The words come out harder than I intended, but I'm past caring. "Mark, are you going to say something?" But Mark just stands there, caught between his wife and his mother, doing what he does best. Nothing. "Oh, sweetheart," Margaret's voice drips with false concern. "Did I spoil your little party? Sometimes the truth is uncomfortable, isn't it?" I look around the room, at the faces I've worked with for years, at the campaigns I've poured my soul into, at the success I've built brick by brick. And there's Daniel, barely hiding his smirk behind his champagne glass. Sophie, still trapped in his conversation, mouths, "I'm sorry." The truth hits me like a physical blow. This isn't just Margaret being Margaret. This is orchestrated, planned, a carefully timed character assassination in front of everyone who matters in my professional life. I set my glass down on a nearby table, careful not to let my hand shake. "You know what, Margaret? You're right about one thing. The truth can be uncomfortable. And I think it's time we all got a lot more uncomfortable with the truth." "Is that a threat, dear?" Margaret's eyebrow arches perfectly. "No," I say, feeling something shift inside me, something final and irreversible. "It's a promise." I turn and walk toward the exit, my heels clicking against the marble floor like a countdown. Behind me I hear Mark finally finding his voice. "Everly, wait." But I don't wait. Not anymore. 7 years of subtle digs, of undermining comments, of watching my husband choose silence over support. It all ends tonight. They want to talk about reputation? Fine. Let's see how their reputations hold up when I'm done. The night air hits my face as I step outside, and I pull out my phone. I have a call to make, to Claire, my sister. She's been warning me about Margaret's games for years. Turns out revenge pairs really well with champagne. The front door slams behind Mark as he follows me into our penthouse. 3 hours of silence in the car after the gala, and now he wants to talk. Fantastic. "You embarrassed her," he says, loosening his tie. "You embarrassed all of us." I kick off my heels, letting them clatter across the marble floor. "I embarrassed her? That's rich, Mark, really rich." "She was trying to protect me." He runs his hands through his hair, a gesture I used to find endearing. "Now it just looks like weakness. You don't understand how these things look." "How they look." My laugh comes out sharp enough to cut glass. Your mother just implied I slept my way to the top in front of our entire professional circle, and you're worried about how things look? The doorbell rings. Mark moves to answer it, but I wave him off. That's Claire. I called her. Your sister? It's midnight, Everly. We need to talk about this. No, what we needed was for you to talk about this 3 hours ago, at the gala, when it mattered. Claire bursts in, all nervous energy and smudged eyeliner. She takes one look at us and says, "Well, you both look like shit." "Not now, Claire," Mark starts, but she cuts him off. "Yes, now. Because I've spent 7 years watching my sister twist herself into knots trying to please your mother, and I'm done. We're all done." I pour 3 fingers of bourbon into a crystal glass, Margaret's wedding gift, ironically. Want to know the best part, Claire? Daniel was in on it. He's been feeding Margaret information about my projects, my meetings. Mark's head snaps up. What? How do you know? Sophie texted me. Apparently Daniel's been quite chatty lately about my special relationship with Victor. The bourbon burn's going down. Your mother didn't come up with those accusations out of nowhere. That doesn't mean... Mark starts, but Claire interrupts again. Stop. Just stop defending her. Do you know what Margaret said to me at Christmas? That it was such a shame Everly prioritized her career over giving you children? That maybe if she'd been more traditional, more family-oriented, things would be different. The glass freezes halfway to my lips. You never told me that. Because I was trying to protect you. Claire's voice cracks. But I can't anymore. Not after tonight. Mark, your mother is systematically trying to destroy everything my sister has built. Mark paces the living room, his reflection multiplying in the floor-to-ceiling windows. You're both overreacting. Mother has her ways, but she means well. Means well? I slammed the glass down. She just torpedoed my reputation in front of the entire board. Victor was there. Mark, my boss was there, watching your mother imply I earned my position on my back. Then quit. The words explode out of him. Just quit. Take some time off. We don't need the money. Mother's right. This isn't how a family works. The silence that follows is deafening. Claire's hand finds mine, squeezing tight. A family works? My voice is deadly quiet now. Tell me, Mark, how exactly does a family work? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like your mother orchestrates. You enable, and I'm supposed to smile and take it until I break. That's not fair. Neither is this marriage anymore. He stops pacing. What are you saying? I'm saying your mother finally got what she wanted. Congratulations. I turn to Claire. I need your help with something. There are files in my home office, documents about Margaret's business dealings with Victor. I think it's time we took a closer look. Everly, Mark's voice holds a warning. Don't do this. Do what? Protect myself? Stand up for myself? God forbid a woman in your family does either of those things. Claire's already heading to the office. I'll start going through them. Mark grabs his coat. I'm going to Mother's. She needs to know what you're planning. Of course you are. I don't even look at him. Tell her I said thanks for the champagne. And Mark, don't bother coming back tonight. The door closes behind him, softer this time. Somehow that's worse than a slam. Claire returns with a stack of folders. You okay? No. I pour another bourbon. But I will be. Margaret wants to play games? Fine. Let's see how she handles someone who's finally ready to play back. What's the plan? I smile, and it feels like breaking and healing all at once. First, we find out exactly what she and Victor have been hiding. Then we make her wish she'd never heard my name. Numbers don't lie, but people do. I'm staring at financial records spread across my desk at 3 a.m, and Margaret's lies are written in red ink and creative accounting. Sophie's sitting across from me, her face illuminated by her laptop screen while Claire paces behind us, muttering into her phone. Found something, Sophie says, turning her screen toward me. Look at these transfers between Margaret's consulting firm and Victor's holdings. They're routing company funds through shell corporations. My fingers trace the pattern of transactions. $7 million in the last 18 months. No wonder she's been so desperate to keep me away from the board meetings. Claire ends her call, dropping into a chair. That was my contact at the SEC. These transactions, they're not just shady, they're illegal. And Daniel's been covering for them, Sophie adds, pulling up more documents. He's been doctoring the marketing reports to hide the money trail. That's why he's been so threatened by your promotion. You'd have access to everything. The pieces click together like a poison puzzle. That's why Margaret attacked me at the gala. She wasn't just being spiteful, she was trying to discredit me before I could discover this. My phone buzzes. Mark. Third call tonight. I silence it. What are you going to do? Claire asks, but she's interrupted by a knock at my office door. Victor stands there, his usual polished appearance slightly disheveled. Ladies? Working late? Sophie quickly minimizes her screen, but Victor waves her off. Don't bother. I know what you've found. How long have you known about Margaret's schemes? I ask, standing. Longer than you'd think. He closes the door behind him. But not as long as your husband. The world tilts sideways. What? Mark's been helping his mother hide these transactions for years. Did you really think he was just a passive bystander? Victor's smile is sharp. He's been playing both sides, keeping you distracted with family drama while helping Margaret build her little empire. Claire starts to speak, but I hold up my hand. Prove it. Victor pulls out a USB drive. Everything's here, including emails between Mark and Margaret discussing how to handle you if you ever got too close to the truth. My hands don't shake as I take the drive. They should, but they don't. Why are you showing me this? Because Margaret's getting sloppy. The SEC is already asking questions, and I'm not going down with her. He straightens his tie. Consider this my insurance policy. After he leaves, Sophie breaks the silence. Everly, this changes everything. If Mark's involved, it changes nothing. My voice sounds strange to my own ears. It just means the list of people who need to face consequences got longer. Claire grabs my arm. Think about what you're saying. This isn't just about Margaret anymore. This could destroy everyone involved, including Mark. They destroyed themselves. I plug in the USB drive. They just didn't expect anyone to notice. My phone buzzes again. Mark, again. This time I answer, putting it on speaker. Everly, please come home. Mother says you've been asking questions about the company finances. Whatever you think you found, how long have you been helping her hide the money, Mark? The silence stretches for 3 heartbeats. Who told you? You just did. I end the call. Sophie starts gathering the documents. We need to be careful. If they realize how much we know. They already do. I pull up my email. Margaret's probably destroying evidence right now, but she doesn't know about Victor's drive, and she doesn't know I've already sent copies of everything to my lawyer. Claire's phone chimes. Speaking of Margaret, she just called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. Perfect. I stand, smoothing my skirt. Then that's where we'll do it. Do what? Sophie asks, but her expression says she already knows. End this. All of it. I look at the family photo on my desk. Mark, Margaret, and me at last year's Christmas party. We're all smiling, all lying. They wanted to play happy families while building their fortune on fraud. Tomorrow, we show everyone exactly what kind of family they really are. Claire touches my shoulder. Are you sure? Once you do this? I've never been more sure of anything. I take the photo and drop it in the trash. Margaret wanted to talk about reputations? Let's see how hers holds up in front of a federal investigation. The night stretches ahead, full of possibilities and preparations. Tomorrow, everything changes. Tomorrow, they learn what happens when you underestimate the woman you tried to destroy. Tomorrow, we go to war. The boardroom feels like a tomb at 7 a.m., all polished mahogany and morning shadows. I'm here early, arranging documents like weapons on the table, when Victor slides in through the side door. They're destroying evidence, he says without preamble. Margaret had Daniel working through the night. I keep my voice steady. Let them try. You don't understand. Victor leans closer, his cologne mixing with coffee breath. They're not just covering their tracks. They're creating a paper trail that leads to you. The pen in my hand snaps. Ink bleeds across my fingers like an omen. Smart move, really, he continues. Who better to take the fall than the ambitious new director who had access to everything? Margaret's quite thorough when she wants to be. Sophie bursts in, face flushed. Everly, Daniel's team just submitted a revised quarterly report. They're saying you signed off on fraudulent numbers last month. But I never... The realization hits like ice water. The documents Mark asked me to sign, the ones he said were routine approvals. Victor's laugh lacks humor. Your husband's been quite useful to his mother. The boardroom door opens again. Margaret sweeps in, Daniel trailing behind her like an eager shadow. Mark follows, not meeting my eyes. Everly, darling. Margaret's smile is a perfectly crafted weapon. I didn't expect you here so early. We're having a private meeting first. About the $7 million in laundered funds? The words drop like bombs in the quiet room. Or about how you're planning to frame me for it? Daniel's face goes white. Mark steps forward. Everly, please. Don't. I hold up my hand, ink-stained fingers like a stop sign. I trusted you, Mark. All those late nights you spent helping your mother with her business, you were setting me up. Margaret's smile doesn't waver. Such dramatic accusations. Daniel, would you show everyone the documentation we discussed? Daniel opens his laptop, but before he can turn it, Sophie speaks up. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Daniel. The SEC might be interested in the original versions I backed up last month. The room goes still. Margaret's eyes narrow. You're bluffing. My phone buzzes. A text from Claire. SEC agents just arrived downstairs. 2 minutes. Am I? I stand, spreading the documents across the table. $7 million routed through shell companies, falsified reports, forged signatures, and now a desperate attempt to pin it all on me. You ungrateful little... Margaret starts forward, but Victor catches her arm. It's over, Margaret. His grip tightens. I've given them everything. Mark's face crumples. Victor, you were Mother's partner. Partner? Victor's laugh is bitter now. I was her puppet, just like you, just like everyone else. But unlike you, I kept receipts. Footsteps in the hallway. Margaret's composure cracks. Mark, do something. But Mark just stands there, trapped between his mother and his wife, paralyzed by the weight of his choices. The boardroom door opens. 2 SEC agents enter, followed by Claire and my lawyer. Margaret, one agent says, we have some questions about your financial records. What happens next feels like slow motion. Margaret lunging for Daniel's laptop. Sophie blocking her path. Mark trying to reach for me as I step away. The agents moving forward, badges out. Daniel cracking under the pressure, words spilling out like confession. But I'm not watching them anymore. I'm watching Victor, who meets my gaze with something like respect, or maybe warning. Mrs. Harrison, the agent turns to me, we'll need your statement as well. Of course. I gather my documents, carefully avoiding Mark's desperate eyes. I have everything right here. Margaret's voice cuts through the chaos. You'll regret this, Everly, when this is over. It's already over. I turn to face her fully. You tried to destroy me, Margaret, but you forgot something crucial. And what's that? I learned from the best. I smile, and it feels like victory and venom. You taught me everything I know about destroying people's reputations. As the agents lead Margaret and Daniel out, Mark tries one last time. Everly, whatever you think happened, save it for your statement, Mark. I walk past him, pausing at the door. I'm sure your mother needs you right now. You've always been good at choosing her side. The morning sun hits my face as I leave the boardroom, and for the first time in years, I can breathe. But Victor's warning eyes linger in my mind, a reminder that in games like this, victory often comes with hidden costs. I'm ready to pay them. The SEC investigation has everyone choosing sides. I watch from my office as Daniel packs his desk, his hands shaking as he drops family photos into a cardboard box. 3 cubicles down, Sophie's organizing a digital archive of evidence that could bury half the executive board. My phone vibrates. Claire again. 4th call today. I let it go to voicemail. You should answer that. Victor appears in my doorway, uninvited as usual. Your sister's been trying to warn you about something. How do you know what Claire... Because Margaret's lawyers contacted her this morning. He closes the door. They're offering her immunity in exchange for testimony against you. The world tilts sideways. Claire has nothing to do with this. No? Victor slides a folder across my desk. Remember that startup she launched last year? Guess who secretly funded it through one of Margaret's shell companies? My hands won't stop trembling as I read the documents. Claire's signature on papers she couldn't possibly have understood. Dates that line up perfectly with Margaret's larger scheme. My own sister, I whisper. Margaret's thorough. Victor shrugs. She's been planning this longer than you realize. A knock interrupts us. Sophie bursts in, face flushed. Mark's here. With lawyers. I stand, smoothing my skirt. Let them wait in the conference room. Everly. Victor's voice stops me. Before you go in there, there's something else you should know about Claire's company. But I'm already walking away, heels clicking against marble floors, each step carrying me closer to whatever fresh hell awaits. The conference room door feels heavier than usual. Mark stands when I enter, looking more like his mother than ever. We need to talk about Claire. Funny, I was just reading about her business ventures. I sit facing the wall of suits. Tell me, Mark, did you help Margaret set my sister up, or was that all your mother's idea? This isn't about... He stops, recalibrating. The SEC is expanding their investigation. They're looking at everyone now, including Claire's startup. And Mother's willing to keep Claire out of it. All you have to do is sign a statement taking responsibility for the initial fraud. The laugh that escapes me doesn't sound entirely sane. You want me to confess to crimes your mother committed to protect the sister she manipulated into becoming an accomplice? I want to protect our family. Mark slams his hand on the table. Why can't you understand that? Your family, Mark. It's always been your family. I was just the outsider who didn't know her place. Sophie slips into the room, tablet in hand. She places it in front of me without a word. On screen, security footage plays. Claire entering Margaret's office late one night, leaving with documents. The timestamp matches the date of my promotion. Oh, God! The pieces click together. She gave Margaret access to my files. Mark at least has the decency to look away. She didn't know what Mother would do with them. Get out. My voice is ice. All of you. Everly, please. I said get out. They file out, leaving me alone with Sophie. She waits until the door closes before speaking. Victor's been asking questions about Claire's company financials. I know. No, you don't. She pulls up another document. The money Margaret invested? It's gone. All of it. Claire's company is bankrupt, but the funds were transferred somewhere else first. My phone buzzes again. Claire. This time I answer. Everly, thank God. Her voice is breaking. I need to tell you something. Save it. The words taste like ash. I know what you did. What I don't know is why. She said she'd help me fix things. The company was failing, and she promised to bail you out if you helped destroy me? Silence. Then, I didn't know she'd use the files that way. I swear, Everly, I was desperate. I end the call, turning to Sophie. Find out where that money went, and get me everything you can on Victor's connection to all this. What are you thinking? I'm thinking my sister's not the only one being manipulated. I stand, gathering the documents. And I'm thinking it's time to find out what Victor really wants. The sun sets outside my office window, casting long shadows across the city. Somewhere out there, Margaret's plotting her next move. Claire's world is collapsing, and Victor's playing a game I'm only beginning to understand. But they all forgot something crucial. I've got nothing left to lose, and that makes me more dangerous than any of them realize. The emergency board meeting feels like a funeral, and I'm both the corpse and the murderer. Margaret sits at the head of the table, pristine as ever, while Victor lurks in the corner like a particularly well-dressed vulture. The SEC investigators flank the room, their presence turning every whisper into potential evidence. Let's begin, Margaret announces, sliding folders to each board member. We're here to address the allegations of financial misconduct and determine appropriate actions. Sophie catches my eye from across the room, a slight shake of her head. Whatever's in those folders, it isn't good. As you can see, Margaret continues, the documentation clearly shows a pattern of unauthorized transfers and manipulated reports, all originating from the marketing department under my daughter-in-law's direction. I open my folder and feel the floor drop away. There they are. My signatures on documents I never signed, my initials authorizing transfers I never approved. The forgeries are perfect. Mrs. Harrison, one of the SEC investigators, leans forward. Would you care to explain these discrepancies? Before I can speak, the boardroom door opens. Claire walks in, followed by Mark and their lawyers. My sister won't meet my eyes. I have testimony, Claire announces, her voice barely steady, about Everly's involvement in the financial irregularities. The betrayal hits like a physical blow. Margaret's smile grows sharper. Claire, I start, but Victor interrupts. Before we continue, he stands, straightening his tie. I believe there's something else the board should see. He connects his laptop to the projector, and suddenly the screen fills with emails, hundreds of them, between Margaret and Mark, between Mark and Daniel, between Margaret and Claire. What is this? Margaret's composure cracks slightly. Insurance, Victor says. Every conversation, every plan, every step of your scheme to frame Everly, including, I might add, the real transfer records showing where Claire's company funds actually went. Claire gasps. Mark goes pale. You were recording everything? Margaret's voice could freeze hell. Of course I was. Victor turns to the SEC investigators. You'll find it all quite illuminating, especially the parts about Margaret's other shell companies, the ones even Mark doesn't know about. Margaret stands so quickly her chair topples. You treacherous... Careful, Victor cuts her off. The investigators are still here. The room erupts into chaos. Claire starts crying. Mark tries to reach for me, but I step back. The SEC investigators are already moving, collecting laptops, demanding phones. But something's wrong. Victor's smile is too satisfied, too practiced. Why? I ask him quietly, as the chaos swirls around us. Why help me now? Help you? He laughs softly. Oh, Everly, I'm not helping you. I'm destroying Margaret. You're just convenient collateral damage. What do you mean? Check your email, the one you just got 5 minutes ago. I pull out my phone, open my inbox. There it is. An email from an anonymous account containing documents that show my own involvement in a separate scheme. One I had nothing to do with, but with evidence so convincing it would take years to disprove. You set me up too, I whisper. Margaret taught me well. He adjusts his cufflinks. Never play just one game at a time. The SEC investigators are heading our way. Sophie's trying to get my attention, probably to warn me about the email she's undoubtedly discovered too. Claire's mascara runs in black rivers down her face. Mark stands frozen, watching his mother's empire crumble, and I realize this was never about justice. It was about power. Margaret's power, Victor's revenge, my desperate grab for control. We're all just pieces on someone else's board. Mrs. Harrison, an investigator approaches. We need to discuss some additional documentation that's just come to light. I look around the room one last time. At Margaret, her perfectly constructed world shattering. At Claire, who sold her soul to save her company and lost both. At Mark, who never could choose between his mother and his wife, and ended up destroying both relationships. Of course, I tell the investigator, I'll tell you everything. Because that's the thing about revenge. Sometimes winning means making sure everyone loses, even yourself, especially yourself. The handcuffs click around my wrists, cold and final. But as they lead me out, I catch Victor's eye one last time, and I smile. Because he forgot something crucial. I still have copies of everything, and prison gives you plenty of time to plan your next move. 3 months after the arrests, I sit across from Margaret in the prison's visiting room. Her orange jumpsuit clashes with her perfectly styled hair. Some habits die hard, even in federal custody. I have to admit, she says, I didn't expect you to visit. I almost didn't. I place a manila envelope on the table between us. But then Sophie found something interesting in Victor's private servers. Margaret's perfectly manicured nails tap against the metal table. Victor's in custody too, dear. Whatever game you're playing. This isn't a game. I slide the envelope toward her. These are copies of emails between you and Victor from 15 years ago, about Mark's father's death. The tapping stops. For the first time since I've known her, Margaret looks afraid. It wasn't an accident, was it? I lean forward. The brake lines didn't just fail. Victor helped you arrange it, and then you spent 15 years keeping him close, using him, until he finally decided to bite back. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You killed your husband because he threatened to expose your first financial scheme. Then you spent years building this careful, controlling image. The grieving widow, the protective mother, the successful businesswoman. Her mask slips, just for a moment. Everything I did for Mark. No. I stand, my chair scraping against concrete. Everything you did for power. Mark was just another piece you moved around your board, like Claire, like me. So what now? Her voice hardens. You'll expose the truth? Destroy what's left of Mark's image of his mother? The door opens. Mark walks in, followed by 2 investigators. He already knows, I say quietly. I showed him the emails last week. Margaret goes very still. Mark? He won't look at her. They found Dad's old brake lines in a storage unit, Mother. The one registered to Victor's shell company. They're reopening the investigation. You chose her over your own mother? Margaret's voice cracks. After everything I've done for you? No, Mark says. I chose the truth. Finally. I gather my things, but Margaret's not done. You think this makes you better than me? Look what your revenge has done to this family, to Claire, to everyone. The difference is, I never pretended to be anything other than what I am. I pause at the door. And I never killed anyone to keep my secrets. Everly, she calls after me. The company's destroyed. The family's ruined. Was it worth it? I think about Claire, in rehab now, finally getting help. About Sophie, promoted to head of marketing. About Mark, in therapy, learning to exist outside his mother's shadow. Ask me again in 15 years. The door closes behind me, leaving mother and son alone with their ghosts. Outside, Sophie waits in her car. How did it go? They're reopening the case. I buckle my seatbelt. Mark's testimony should be enough to convict her this time. And Victor? Made a deal with prosecution. He'll testify about everything. The murder, the fraud, all of it. Sophie pulls into traffic. What about you? The SEC dropped their charges, but my career in corporate finance is over? I laugh, and it feels genuine for the first time in months. Good. I'm tired of playing their games. My phone buzzes. A text from Claire. 6 months sober today. Thank you for not giving up on me. You know, Sophie says carefully, the tech startup I mentioned is still looking for a marketing consultant. Someone who knows how to rebuild from scratch. I watch the city scroll past, thinking about power and revenge and the cost of truth, about how destroying something corrupt might be the first step to building something better. Maybe, I say. But first, I need to visit my sister. Sophie nods, understanding. Want company? No. I smile, feeling lighter than I have in years. I think it's time for some honest family conversations. The sun sets behind us, painting the sky in shades of redemption. Somewhere in a prison visiting room, a son confronts his mother's crimes. In a rehab center across town, a sister rebuilds her life. And here, in this car, I finally understand. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's about destroying the lies that gave them power in the first place. The startup's office feels different from the corporate towers I'm used to, all exposed brick and natural light. Sophie leads the interview panel, but we both pretend we've never met. Professionalism matters, even in fresh starts. Your experience is impressive, one interviewer says, but there's the matter of your previous company's situation. You mean the fraud investigation that took down 3 executives? I smile. That's exactly why you should hire me. I know every way a company can be corrupted from the inside, which means I know every way to prevent it. Sophie's lips twitch. She knows what I'm not saying, about power, about consequences, about the weight of truth. The panel exchanges glances. When can you start? Before I can answer, my phone buzzes. Claire's name flashes on the screen. Excuse me, I need to take this. In the hallway, Claire's voice shakes. Victor's dead. Apparent suicide in his cell, but his notes, Everly. He left documents about Dad's company, about what really happened before Margaret took control. It wasn't just Mark's father she had killed. The world tilts sideways. Again. There's more, Claire continues. The FBI wants to talk to us, both of us, about what happened before Mom died. I lean against the wall, feeling the cool brick against my palm. Our mother's car accident when we were teenagers, the one that left Margaret as our father's closest business advisor. The one that never made sense. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Back in the interview room, Sophie reads my face instantly. Everything okay? Actually, no. I gather my things. I need to reschedule. There's something I have to finish first. The position might not be here when you return, one interviewer warns. Then it wasn't meant to be. I pause at the door. Some things matter more than career moves. I learned that the hard way. Outside, Mark waits by his car. Of course, Claire called him too. We haven't spoken since his mother's sentencing. You knew, didn't you? He asks. About Victor's investigation into my father's death. That's why you pushed so hard to expose everything. I suspected, but I didn't know about your father's first wife, or mine and Claire's mother. I meet his eyes. Did you? No. He looks older somehow, worn by truth. But I should have. The pattern was always there. My phone buzzes again. The FBI agent assigned to Victor's case. The past isn't done with us yet. Maybe it never will be. What now? Mark asks. Now we finish it. All of it. I get into his car. Margaret didn't just destroy our families. She built an empire on bodies. Victor knew. That's why he played both sides. He wasn't just seeking revenge. He was gathering evidence. And now that evidence dies with him? No. I pull out my phone, show him Victor's last email to me. Now it lives with us. Mark starts the car. The company's gone. Mother's in prison. Isn't that enough? Ask your father. Ask my mother. Ask everyone who stood in Margaret's way and paid with their lives. I look out at the city, at all its gleaming towers built on secrets. This was never just about revenge, Mark. It's about justice. You sound like Victor. No. I think about Margaret in her prison cell, still believing she's the victim. About Victor, playing games until the very end. About how revenge and justice sometimes wear the same face, but leave different scars. I sound like someone who finally understands the difference between vengeance and truth. We drive toward the FBI office, toward more revelations, more pain, more clarity. The startup job will have to wait. Some debts demand payment in full. Sophie texts, "Whatever you're doing, be careful. Power corrupts both ways." She's right, but there's a difference between seeking power and seeking truth. Margaret taught me the first. Victor's death taught me the second. And somewhere between those lessons, I learned who I really am. The FBI building looms ahead, a monument to consequences. Mark parks, but doesn't move to get out. Ready? He asks. I think about Claire, waiting inside, about the truth that's haunted our families for decades, about how ending things sometimes means starting them over. No, I answer honestly, but that's never stopped me before. We walk toward the truth together, neither friends nor enemies, just survivors of the same storm. And maybe that's the real victory, not the revenge, not the justice, but the clarity to know the difference. Some echoes never fade, but we choose which ones to answer.